It's alive! So, welcome everybody. So, quick recap for those of you who weren't the last stream. Today I'm going to talk about the workings of this clock. This is a bit of an oddball. This is a clock that was made right after the Second World War. Like you can see, it is atypically mostly made of aluminium, and it was made by a German. It was made by Germans, but it was made for the French. So this clock is a German-made clock with a Raker Escapement. I think Playful knows everything about the Raker Escapement because he did some research on it, together with a lot of other escapements. But yeah, what's also very atypical about this clock is that it is a bit well, it's nicely engineered in a way that it's completely unnecessary. Like you can see all those levers, they're all nicely rounded just because, I don't know, somebody thought it looked funny, and it is a really beautiful clock. If I go somewhere to a fair or something to make a bit of promotion for my business, I always take this one because it always gets the looks because it's so pretty. So a bit about the basics of this clock. This is a striking mechanism, a Westminster striking mechanism. That means that it can play the striking of like the clocks of Westminster Abbey in England. So that means that every quarter of the hour it will strike a bit of the melody, and it repeats itself. So it will play the melody one time on the first quarter of the hour, and 2 times on the second quarter, and so on and so on. What's also a bit atypical about this clock is that it can also play the Ave Maria. So the roller here with all the pins that lifts out the levers. Like you can see, it rolls here. You can change it, so now it's a Westminster, and if you change it over, it plays the Ave Maria sounds, and then on top of the quarter it strikes the hours when it's exactly on the hour. So yeah, you know all the escapements by now. I'm pretty sure you almost know all of them. There are a few oddballs that I didn't talk about because, well, it doesn't really make sense to know them. And yeah, it's not really over-engineered in that way. It's well, I can move the camera closer, but I don't know about focus, but I can. Okay, if that's better. But I don't know, it looks a bit out of focus. going to turn on the room lights because that's a bit better. Less noise on the image. Lots of gears. Well, wait until we look on the inside. But I don't know if we're going to get there today. Well, the images are a bit noisy, and it's a bit better now. So, where was I? I can't remember what I was explaining. Yeah, I wanted to tell, like, it's over engineered in a way that like, for example, a lot of clocks can't handle turning them backwards to correct them because those levers catch behind something or something else and then they break if they turn it too far. But this one is pretty well protected, and I'm going to show it later on. But at first I'm going to talk a bit like about like the general workings of the striking mechanism, because that's all you can see here, and then I'm going to later on dive a bit more into the inside if we get there today. Otherwise it's going to be next week. But so I'm going to, because I don't have hands for this clock too, so I'm going to use a wrench to turn it. But that's because I salvaged this clock from the dumpster at school because it was going to be thrown out. So that's why I don't have, I only have the movement, and also on the back side normally he would be a pendulum leader, and of course the pendulum and the suspension spring, but I don't have those. But I do have, I just took some like to show you what they look like. So this is the suspension spring, which normally sits here, and then this is a pendulum leader, so this goes in between the suspension spring and the pendulum, so it normally would hook here and then here, but you see like this one is too short, like it wouldn't really fit, but I just took those from a random clock just to show you. Well, it seems like I bumped something. Yeah, like I remember it was at school, and I was working on this clock because it was a clock for my friend, but I had to repair it as an assignment. But my friend wasn't really too good with clocks, so I remember because this system is a bit different than most clocks, and I figured it out how to regulate it properly to get it working. But my friend at the time, he got into a depression and he quit school, and the teachers at one point decided to throw this clock out, but I was able to save the movement because they had already thrown out the case by them. Yeah, that's a valid question. Be right back. Well, normally they would hit something like this. It's a bit like the strings in a piano, but like gongs. They all have a different length and they're all tuned for different frequencies, so I can... It's a bit bombastic if you hit them all, but... try to. So yeah, normally they would hit something like this, but in this clock it would be like a double one. So 4 on each side. But I don't have one like that at the moment, so I can't really show it, but just imagine like it would be like 2 of those next to each other. So each set of hammers has 4 to hit against. So you can see here. So I'm going to turn this, and then you should watch this lever do its thing. Yeah, some of them are spiraled, but mostly if you have multiple of them, they aren't spiraled. If there are like more of them, they are mostly just straight like these ones. So you could see that this lever, when it's 1 of the quarters of the hour, this lever will lift everything here up, and then until 1 moment this will liberate the gear train behind here, and you can see that it will move a bit. Yeah, that's another clock behind me that you can hear now. I don't know if I can overpower it with my voice, but I hope so. So I'm going to remove this lever to show you some things behind it a bit better. So this lever will push this all the way up, and it will liberate this gear train here. So I'm going to show it later. Well, you'll learn it in like small steps. So by the time you're working on a clock like this, you know how to put it together. So this gear has a pin on the side of the gear that's poking out, and on this lever there is a small block poking through the plate here, and it will block that pin, so it will block the gear train. So if this gets moved up by some pins that are here, those are on those pins here, they turn equally with the minute hand. So if those get lifted up, they will liberate the gear train, because this piece is in between, and it will lift this lever up, and then it will turn until this lever can fall in one of those notches here, and then this will lower, and it will block the movement again. So if you have any questions about that, now is the moment. Because for me it all makes sense, but it's like doing an online class. Well, it's an online class, but I'm doing it for fun. Well, some teachers are doing it for fun probably too, but you don't have any questions yet. Okay, that's great. So then I'm going to continue. So I'm going to mount this one back on. If I can figure out how it went back on. I think it's like this somewhere, yes. So I told you before that there are a lot of securities built into these clocks, and one of the securities is that what if you do this? You turn 2 ticks in one time and you don't give the movement to catch up. Now you have introduced a fault, because you've turned the minute hand 1/4 further than the movement thinks it already is. So they thought about that. So you can see here the cut for the last quarter, so actually the hour, because there are 4 quarters in an hour, but like the end of the 4th quarter is like on the hour itself. That cut is deeper. So, and I'm going to show you those pins, because they solved that by making one pin a bit higher. It seems like I need to remove that lever too. So like you can see now, it's a bit star-shaped, and this is a bit higher. So I'm going to mess the synchronization up now, and I'm going to show you. I'm going to let it spin now. So well, yeah, the gears that I removed now are from they are what we call the hand gears, so they drive the hands. But since like I don't really need a clock, and this cam is from the hour striking mechanism, so we don't really need that either right now. So going to, so now you can see it does nothing. That's because I misaligned it on purpose, but now this time it will go because this is the higher pin. It should go. Did I mess it up? No, it should go now. So now it's the final quarter, but this next pin is a low pin, so it shouldn't go. Nope, it doesn't go. So basically, if it happens to get out of sync, it just waits on the hour until the high pin comes, because that marks the hours. So that means that if the clock is out of sync, it will not strike until that high pin will come by. So now it doesn't do anything, but now it gets lifted up higher, and now it strikes. So another thing that's going to happen now is there's a little bump on that wheel too, and now it's going to lift this up, and we're going to have the pre-strike of the hour striking mechanism. So now it's going to move a little bit, and it starts. So in order to explain that, I'm going to mount that all back up. Well, it kind of depends on what clock it is, but that could be the case, yes. So another thing that they build in for security. Well, yeah, but like I say, this one has a lot of securities built in. If that clock doesn't have those securities, it could be that that's the case. Oh, I see. Just a slight reminder. I don't really know too much about those clocks, but so another security feature that I'm going to show now is if it's ready for striking the hour, this lever will drop on this wheel with like all those notches onto it. But in case you would turn the clock, like adjust the clock time-wise, there is a little pin that can be pushed out of the way, so you won't damage anything by doing it. That's one of the other securities that they built into this clock. So again, if there are any questions, now is the moment. I'm going to take a quick drink. What do you mean? What's this? The security against the hammer? Oh, not much. Like, this can handle a bit of abuse, but a hammer, nah. Like, to disassemble them completely, you need to use a hammer, but you need to be pretty careful about where and how you hit it, because definitely this one, because it's completely aluminium. But yeah, there are some stories about people who disassemble a clock by themselves and can't put it back together and end up using the hammer out of pure frustration. Mostly it doesn't end well for the clock, nor the owner of the clock, because they end up without a working clock at the end. But yeah, no questions. So I'm going to show that that basically in order to get the hour striking mechanism to work, the hour only strikes when the quarter striking, like the Westminster striking, is done, and basically the wheel here, right at the end, it has a small bump, and that small bump lifts up this lever, and it lifts it up until it hits this lever. Can be lifted a bit up, and this lever will free the movement, and that's what we call the pre-strike. I went a bit too far now because we didn't get a proper pre-strike. No, it strikes once an hour, but it strikes. It strikes once an hour, but it only strikes the amount of hours it is at that time after the Westminster sound is done. So that was what was I going to explain? So basically, this lever gets lifted up until it just can, and then it should stop. But it doesn't, because this one wasn't lifted. So let's try that again. So it's ever so slightly. Yeah, no, this one, but normally after this one's done. Yep, and now you can see that's, yeah, 4 times 4 o'clock. So now you could see, so the moment now it's going to drop, and then it's going to strike the hours. So I don't know, now it's 1 time, 2 times, 3 times, 4 times 5, and now it's going to stop. It's a bit out of focus, it seems. It's a bit hard to get the clock in complete focus because the camera is angled a bit, but so yeah. Did everyone understand the pre-strike, or? What's the purpose of the pre-strike? Well, the pre-strike actually makes the clock ready in a way that it means that well, a pre-strike is basically this lever will move out of the way, so those two gears have little pins on them, and they are blocked by those two levers. So this will lift up, and it will block the pin here, and because it's lifted here, it will, and it will. You saw it move a bit. So basically, this lever came free, and then there's a little bit space in between this lever, and then it hits. Basically, the pre-strike puts this part of the movement in a ready state. So if this one drops down, like if this is done, then it will have no problem just starting right up. Because if there's any how do you know, if there's any strain on the movement before it, those hammers will not come up to speed properly to get a nice sound out of the clock, like out of the gongs, basically. That's the purpose of a pre-strike. So basically it's making that part of the clock ready to go. So I'm going to see, so basically if I lift this all the way up, we have our pre-strike, it has hit now. If I push it up further, you can see that this cam drops down. So this cam will hit those notches here, and those notches, you can see they gradually go from very deep to very high. So this is the 12 for 12 o'clock. This is the 1. So the deeper this cam can fall down, the more it will strike, because every time you can see those detents here, every time it strikes on this wheel, there's a little pin, and it will move those notches one up. So I'm going to let it do it now so you can see. Now it takes, it goes one detent further, another further, and so on until, yeah, that's how it counts. So now the moment you can, now it drops down, so this lever again will drop down, and on this wheel again now it has slowed, and the pin on this wheel will hit again, finishing actually the striking of the hour. And now it's ready for the next hour to go up again. So I'm going to demonstrate it once more. So the pre-strike, it hits again. We're going to lift it higher. The cam drops until the detent. And now if we drop it again, Now it's going to strike and it's going to count again until this pin can drop down, causing this lever to go down and blocking the mechanism again, ready for the next time. So that's how it counts. So another interesting thing about, you can probably see this here and this one here. Those are called wind vanes, and wind vanes regulate the speed of the mechanism it's running at when it is not lifting up those hammers, because if it's not lifting up those hammers, then it doesn't really, it will go up in speed otherwise, but this limits the speed of the gear train, and like this one of the melody, of the Westminster melody, is even fancier because it can extend outwards. I don't know if I can like, you can see that it has a little spring. It kind of works like a ball governor, like something like that, but with a bit of wind vane. So it will go open if it goes too fast and will even catch more wind. But this one is just a normal one, because this is just the strike of the hour. It's a little bit less complex than this one, so that's why they get away with it. So yeah, it's like the governor on steam engines, but it doesn't really, like on a steam engine, the governor will drive a valve. Here it's more acting directly. Or the governor on the brakes on an old elevator. On a governor, that's where the balls out, the expression balls out comes from. Because balls out would be like the maximum speed thing would be allowed to do. So yeah, that's a bit all there is on the outside. So hi, you finally made my stream. Yeah, it's breaking because of air velocity, yes. And making sure that the gear train doesn't go too fast. Like I was repairing another clock yesterday, and I'm going to show it quickly because it's kind of a funny story. So yesterday I put together this clock, and I wound it up, and the moment it started striking, the striking mechanism went crazy, and I was like, oh, hi, and have a good day at work. So what I was going to say is, you can see that this, on this wind vane, there is a little notch, and that notch is meant to be bent, because if there's a little bit play in the hole where the axle runs in, you can adjust that play a bit by bending this one to this side or further out, depending on how the play is. And this one was bent out too far, so this gear and this gear weren't in contact with each other, meaning that the wind vane wasn't turning. So when it was ready to strike, it would just go crazy fast, because once the hammer is lifted and it doesn't have to push this thing up, the gateway is just free to move as fast as it can, so it went crazy. Well, that way of adjusting is actually pretty common in old clocks. Definitely for not pocket watches, but travel alarm clocks. They would have that at the escapement, and that meant that a clockmaker could just bend it outwards, remove the escapement, just throw the whole clock into cleaning solution, clean it completely, and then they would do something that we call doing an airplane. That means winding up the mainspring completely without the escapement in place, like just blocking it with a piece of wood, removing the piece of wood and letting it run as fast as it can. And I can tell you, it makes a sound like an airplane, like more of a railing jet. And then, yeah, that's a bit violent. Then all the dirt would come loose, and then they would oil it, put the escapement back into place, and then bend that little notch back into place, securing the escapement. But the only problem was you could this is brass, so you can only do that ever so often before that lip breaks off. So basically, yeah, it was clock abuse. The watchmakers at that time, they were just making money, but I can't blame them, because watchmakers at that time, they had to like do so much work. Like they would work Saturdays and Sundays, because they had so much clocks and alarm clocks to do, travel alarm clocks, watches, because back then it was very common, and they weren't as high quality as they are now, so they had a lot of repairs to do. So yeah, anyways, this was what happened yesterday. So you can see it's a bit tilted this way, and that was what I had to do to make it run. And I don't know if it picks up the mic, but I need to, it's a bit too deep now, so I need to move it a bit out. So the way of adjusting on this clock some distances, like for example the escapement, is a bit different. You can see, so because this clock is aluminium, and if you would run a steel axle in aluminium, it wouldn't last long before the holes are oval instead of nicely round. So they all have like little pieces, round pieces of brass put in place. Yeah, an invalid profile would solve that for a bit, but yeah, not a discussion for today. But what I was going to say is that on critical places, like for example this wind vane and the escapement here, you can see that those round pieces of brass have a slot in them. So that means that the hole is not in the center of the round piece, and there's a screwdriver hole in. So you can, by turning it, you can regulate the distance in between, in this case, the escapement wheel and the escapement. So I'm not going to do it because this one is pretty well regulated, and this one too, but you get the idea. By turning it around, you can move the distance because the hole is not in the center, and that's the good way of handling some adjustment. But this one is only on one side, and on the other side you have like a plate that you can move up and down by releasing those screws. any questions about that? If not, then I'm going to partially disassemble the clock to show you some more. So yeah, before I disassemble it, like this is the gear, the wheel that lifts up the it's eccentric, yeah. Before I disassemble, I'm just going to show you this. So this is the thing lifts up the hammer, so you can see it's just a star-shaped wheel that lifts up this pin and lifts up the hammers. Here's a little spring that makes them bounce back. So temporarily murdered. Well, it's it's a bit disassembled, but yeah, I'm going to make sure it doesn't feel any pain, and it will be back up and running again this evening. So for this assembly, I'm going to first remove this. So the melody roll, and then we can have a close look at the melody roll. So this is the lever that which allows you to select in between the Ave Maria melody and the Westminster melody. So you can see there's a notch here, and that catches on the plate, so it's either like here or here, and then this notch goes into this slot, and it allows the ball to move like this. So at one, so it moves from there to allowing a different set of pins to hit the hammers. So when the thing is spinning, it lifts up the hammers like this, and then they fall. In this case, they fall on their own back. Some of them have little springs here, but this is just gravity, hence the big bend here, allowing the center of gravity to be that they fall always on their own. So they're all the same. So you can see I'm using a pair of pliers to undo all those nuts. That's because none of those nuts are standard size, so doesn't bother to get out your keys to do it because they will never fit. Yeah. Well, it's going to until we release the springs. So now I'm going to remove this pin here. There's a small washer too. And then this bit's just like right out. So those are the hammers of the hour. So now I'm going to loosen the tension on the springs. So, but you can see this one has double double detensite. Basically, the Westminster or the Ave Maria melody needs so much power that there's a super heavy string behind this, and we don't want it to release on accident when winding it because you would probably break your wrists if that force is going to release at once. So they put double security on it. You don't see that very often, but on this clock they did. So in order to release it, because I can only disengage one of those, I'm going to temporarily remove one already, because yeah, I only have two hands. So yeah, now I have one disengaged, so now I'm going to use this tool, which allows me to have a good grip on it, so I can gradually release the force. Finding one with a good fit. Yeah, it's probably going to be this one. So now I'm going to turn it, and then with like this. So I'm disengaging it and letting it slip gradually. So that's one done. Two more to go. I'm trying not to cover the camera, but there's a lot of power on this one too. That one's a bit violent, but so there's no force on those springs. I can safely disassemble it. So what you can see about this movement is that it's split up into three pieces, which is very nice because that means I can show the three pieces into different steps without risking all the gears falling out. And so yeah, let's open one up. Seems like this one's a bit naughty. But it's coming loose. But still not by hand, a bit annoying, but so now you can clearly see all those brass pieces inside of the aluminium. So I've opened up the melody part of the... So you can see there was still a bit of power left on the springs, but not that much. So basically this part of the gear train is all reduction. So we have a lot of force here, but not many turns, and we want that to at the top be a lot of turns with not that much force, because we don't need all of the force that's stored in here at once. Yeah, even more gears. So you can see the melody roll engages straightly with the barrel, and inside of this barrel is a huge spring. I mean, all of those are, but this one is the largest one. So this one we can't get out because there's something else on the other side. And here we can see that's one of the this is one of the pins that can get blocked by the mechanism on the other side. No, all of those gears are useful. They really are all useful. So this is just also an intermediate gear. And then this is the wind train, so we can have a better look at the wind train now. So you can see it opens up, there's a spring here, and if that can get depressed by this one, it opens up and it can even catch more wind. So going to remove the barrel. So yeah, now you can get a better look at those two levers that catch that pin here. So this sits here, and this pin get catched by either that lever or that lever, depending on the state. So it kind of has a pre-strike, but it's not as outspoken as in this one. So you can see, like, if I lift those up, you can see those going in the way or not going in the way of this. So this gear is coupled onto this wheel with the notches in that divides it into quarters of an hour. And there goes our main cam. Ta-da! It's back. So now we are going to open up the main gear. So basically, if I would disassemble this movement for a big clean and maybe repair, I would remove the wheel on the other side. But for now, I'm just going to clean it because I know it works it all works, and I'm just going to leave this in place. But just saying, if this would be an actual repair, I would remove the gear on the other side, but for now I'm just going to leave it into place because I know there is no play So now I'm going to open up just the main movement that drives the clock. So here too there was a bit of residual power left in the spring, but nothing too much. So the first thing we can see is the Raker Escapement. So it's always a bit this shape, depending on how many teeth of the escapement wheel it takes, and then there are those two. Those are half circles. Those are the pallets. So in most older clocks, these pallets will be ruby or synthetic ruby, depending on the age. But in this clock, they are just steel. And if they are steel, they last a fair amount. Like, they will last something 20 years, sometimes even more if they are regularly oiled and greased. And they are pretty easy to replace. They are just a press fit. You can knock them out and just replace them with a good quality steel, and they will last for a while again. Then there's the escapement wheel. Not really anything special about that. Gear teeth's a bit different. Gear teeths are a bit different. Then we have the intermediate wheel. Also nothing special about that. Then here we have the center wheel. The center wheel drives the watch hands and like the reducing mechanism in between the hour and the minute. And then here we have the 8-day gear. It's called the 8-day gear because in most, like 99.9% of the clocks, if it's an 8-day clock, it will have an 8-day gear. So this is actually an extra reduction to make sure it can last for 8 days. So a week clock, like we call it, lasts for 8 days, meaning that you have more or less 24 hours more, just in case you forget to wind it. I don't know if I can disassemble, if I can get it out. No, it doesn't seem like I can pop it out. So it's going to have to stay until I remove the third part. So yeah, any questions so far? I'm going to take a quick sip. Well, no questions. Well, that means I'm doing a great job at explaining it all. Oh, yeah, that's a good one to show. Might put it in, if I don't forget, it will be in the description of the replay too. So up to the last part. Thank you. I'm really enjoying myself. I think that's also important. Like, to explain something you really know about, but you also like. So like you can see here, the top is the wind vane again. This is the wind vane without anything, so it's just, it can slip a bit. So the axle can slip a bit in opposed to the wind vane. So I don't really know if it's that well regulated, but there's always a bit of like slippage in between the wind vanes. So it allows a bit of extra movement. So then this is after the pre-strike. So after this one's released, this one hits against this lever here, and it stops the pre-strike. And then once this one has gone all the way up, releasing the cam with the detents on it, it will fall down and it will release this once, releasing all the gear train. Because at that point, this lever is being kept up by the lever here with the detents on, and it will stay on until the final strike is done. It will fall down, blocking the movement again. So it's not really immediate. So this wheel, it seems like I can't get this main bevel out, but so I can get this one out. Oh, I didn't knew that it has removable axles, so that means I should be able to grab the axle out. No, it doesn't really want to. It's a bit stuck. The axle is a bit crusted, so that might be why it doesn't really want to come out. So that means I'm going to have to knock out here the star wheel. I'm going to knock out that off, so I can remove the springs, because I'm going to ultrasonically clean the clock, but you can't put main springs into an ultrasonic cleaner because it messes up the metal structure inside and they will get really brittle. It doesn't turn to all the main springs, only some of the main springs, but if it happens, it's a real problem, because you can basically take the main spring on every part of the spring and just break it with your bare hands, something that you aren't supposed to be able to do with the main spring. So yeah, that's about it, I guess. If you want to ask me to show something again, I can, like Oh yeah, what I didn't show, what I forgot to show is if you turn it backwards, it just goes down. No. If you, I'm going to put it together on the next stream because I'm going to ultrasonically clean it, and that will take about. That's going to take about an hour because I need to put it in the ultrasonic cleaner and then put it on a dry rack and make sure it's dry. And by the time that's done, I have to enter stream because I need to go somewhere else. But I'm going to clean this clock, and next week I'm going to put it together on stream. So what I was going to show is that if you turn the clock hands backwards, what would happen? So you can basically see that this lever just goes down. This lever just goes down, and it just pops right up. So you're not really damaging something, and yeah, traveling back in time. And like I said, you can see here this notch. It's just going to fall away. Like if it would be, can't really I'm going to turn it a bit like. Yeah, that clock is not running very well at the moment. Our client's coming to pick it up not next week. By next week it's going to run pretty well. So, like I was going to show, like, you can see, like, kind of, this pin here kind of falls away. Like, now it's behind this cam. That's also like, if you would turn it backwards and this cam would engage, like, you're not going to damage anything. It's a common cause on clocks that don't have that to see this one bent, because they put so much, they try to turn it backwards and they put so much force on it. It bent this piece. Yeah, it makes really nice sound. Better is that. Going to replace it. Be right back. So yeah, any questions about this clock, or like, I have about an hour left of time to stream, so I want to fill it up with something. Like, I'm going to take a look around and see if I can find something interesting to talk about otherwise. Yeah, it's a really cool clock. I took a small alarm clock because I'm going to explain how those worked. I don't really know if this is a good example because it has plastic gears, but show a working clock running. Yeah, but like it's going to get a little bit boring like after half an hour, no? Maybe even quicker. So I'm going to wind up this alarm clock real quick and see if it works, and if it works I can show it. Oh no. Like it's missing one of the springs, so it's not really a good thing to, a good way to show it, but good to see if I have some another alarm clock that does work. Just took a random one of my collection. It should work. It worked 5 years ago, so it's probably good enough to demonstrate it for today. I'm going to move the big clock out of the way. This is a Kinsler Opta. Like the outside is in pretty bad shape, but I kinda like it that way. So if you ever want to disassemble an alarm clock like this, there might be so yeah, like I said, if you ever want to disassemble an alarm clock, just twist those handles in the wrong way, like the opposite way of the handle, and those ones you should just be able to pull off. I was just kidding about the radium hands, by the way. Question is, I think it's a bayonet closure on this one, but I'm not sure. Don't really want to pry it open because that would damage the paint job. I'm going to try gentle. Oh no, it's not a bayonet closure on this one. So yeah, now you can see the inside, but this is not really the interesting side of an alarm clock. The interesting side is the other half. So normally the feet hold everything into place together with the nut of the stopper. To get the nut of the stopper off, you kind of need to. There were special tools for that back in the day, but I don't have it. I don't have this. Need to get a bit creative. So I'm using the round part of the cutter. So now we need to get the plate off, and normally I can create a peek under it. No. Ta-da-dum-dum. Wondering how. Can we just pull it off? No, we cannot just pull it off. Yeah, we might be able to just pull it off. I'm going to remove the handset first. I'm trying to use my fingernails for smaller ones because I'm just going to crush them otherwise. Yeah, and that already happened with this one. Don't worry, it's a quick replacement for it. So yeah, it seems like there are slits, so I think it just might be able to just lever it off. Nope, doesn't want to. I really want to show you the front because the front's the interesting part. So it looks like I need to pry it open. And then, nope, doesn't really want to come off. And like if I look underneath, it's not, there's no hidden so I just removed the plate. So I can show it like this actually. That's also good. Yeah. I'm not supposed to have Discord notifications come through like that. Normally they aren't mixed in into the main. Yeah, they're open Babelspeed. So normally Discord notifications aren't mixed in to the main mix that goes to stream. But isn't really. I'm just going to mute Discord completely for now. Investigate that later. Yeah. So basically what I'm going to show you is how an alarm clock knows basically when to start ringing, because that's pretty important, that your alarm clock rings at the right time. So looking for the right handle. Looking for a way to show it, because like you can see, so basically you can see this gear, which is part of the hand mechanism, has a collar on it, and that collar has a detent in it. I'm going to zoom in a bit to so you can see the detent on it here. Like, I think it should my screwdriver. So basically, if this pin falls into the detent, there is this black spring behind it will pop up, so it will push this gear up, and then here, don't really know if I can show it like that. So it's a bit out of focus, but so this, the pin there behind the screwdriver will allow the mechanism to engage and release the rigging mechanism. So it's a bit out of focus. So if so, this is the lever, and if this goes this way, it goes upwards actually, like it was positioned like it was earlier, then it allows this to release, and this is the ringer. So basically, when the detent can fall, this can move up and the pin here will move out of the way, allowing it to ring. So that's basically how an alarm clock works. So if I turn it until it should fall into the detent any moment now. Oh, come on. Keeping it in focus is a bit hard. But yeah, I don't know if you've seen it, if you see it move out of the way. Going to do it again, trying to keep it in focus. Where's the focus plane? That's about right. Yeah, kind of like a snouts like a rattlesnake because, yep. So now you can clearly see the distance in between it. And then once it turns further, it stops again because now the pin is above the detent again. So yeah. So for the rest, there isn't really anything special about an alarm clock like this. It's just a pin pallet escapement and basically a gear train to keep the escapement running, some gears to the hands, and then that extra gear with the detent on it and the collar. Yeah. Any questions? So I'm going to put this one back together because it's so this one is on my closet in my room and kind of like it there. Oh no, I can't really put it completely back together because I need to find a replacement because I broke one of the small hands. No, I don't use it as an alarm clock. It's kind of a barbaric way to wake up. Going to zoom out a bit because so you can kind of see what I'm doing. Yeah, getting it back in with like the spring is not in a barrel. It's kind of a snug fit. I'm basically going to loosely put it together because no, I don't use my phone either. I use a very old electronic alarm clock. just with the radio. Yep. But yeah, there's nothing wrong with waking up with your phone, Rose. I'm not going to leave those off anyways. Yeah, they can't crash software, but they can run out. So, don't have anything else to show you, so... So yeah, going to let this one take a bit. It's going to be fast because it doesn't a pendulum. It doesn't really want to, because this one has a gear sticking out on the other side, so if I put it on the table, it just will run out because the force of bringing it over the table is too much. So just put it on a wooden container. And I'm going to adjust this a bit because it's a bit too tight. Preseat. Because I don't know if the mic picks it up, but it doesn't. You can hear it. That is, it's the proper distance in between the gears. That's a bit better already. But you can still hear that it's still too deep. Yeah, it's a bit of time travel. It's slightly becoming better. Oops, I bent it too much inwards. Now it's blocked completely. It's getting better, but oops, slipped out. it sounds pretty good now. Like, remember, this clock's also dry, so it hasn't been oiled yet, so there's also a lot of sound coming from the gears, the other gears, the axles not being oiled. Actually, the sound is from the escapement. So don't really seem to. It's a bit dark in there. Going to lighten up the image a bit. Colors are a bit washed out, but you can kind of see it now. So basically, every time, this is the escapement here, and every time it releases one of the gear teeth, it makes a tick or tack. So tick, tack, tick, tack, tick, tack. And you want those tick tacks to be evenly spaced out from the center. So basically you want the tick to happen an even amount of degrees, an equal amount of degrees than the tack out from the center, because everything past tick and attack is actually, it's a bit wasted. In a watch we call it the lost space actually. So you can see with this clock it's pretty well, I don't know, if I line it same plane on the camera, you can kind of see it pretty well. So if I oil this clock, it should run okay. I was just testing it without oil to see how it would run without. It's best to always let a clock run in a worse situation than it will be at the customer, because you don't want it failing when the clock is at the customers. So you just make the condition a bit worse and then make it better. There are also clock makers who test their clocks just a bit tilted to make sure that it keeps working in a worse condition. I sometimes do that too, it kind of depends on how the repair is going. Yeah, going to put the brightness back to normal. So yeah, going to mount the pendulum and the pendulum leader on this one. And the suspension spring too. It's a bit crooked, but I'm going to see if I can bend it straight reasonably well, so I don't have to replace it, because those suspension springs are a bit hard to come by the correct ones, and they are pretty important to guarantee the correct workings of the clock. So basically the thickness of the two springs here are very important. The length is important too, but you can correct for the length. It's the thickness and the wideness of those two springs. So yeah, that's way better now. So now I'm going to find the tapered pin to hold it in place. Duct tape, nah. I've seen someone try to use super glue. It didn't really have a good result. Oops. Not sure if it's the right tapered pin. Client disassembled this clock himself. Like, he removed it out of the case, so I don't really know. Oh yeah, it's just the other way around. Okay. Yeah, super glue. It worked for a while. You got to take into account super glue is pretty brittle, and so suspension spring is. Oh, and it's one of those annoying ones where you can't disengage the suspension so it's the other way around. You need to mount them all at once to make it easy. Oh no, it wasn't a client, it was somebody at school who just tried it for shits and giggles, I guess. Whoop, daggers. There goes the tapered pin. Going to look for it. Gotcha. But yeah, as goodly engineered the first clock I showed today was, that's as badly this one's designed. Like, they are very annoying to put together in this way. Sometimes I think engineers who designed it this way think that watchmakers have 1 to 2 arms extra with a full pair of hands extra. 5 hands? Nah, that's way too much. Think about all the fingernails you need to cut if you have 5 hands. Yeah, that's why there's a hammer onto it that hits the gong. I don't have the gong here. I'm going to place that wire back on. Yeah, like those hammers, the end is made out of leather, and if you put them into your ultrasonic cleaner, or if, like, you get them wet, they basically ruined, because it's leather, but it's compressed leather. But if they get wet, they expand, and you can't use them anymore. The modern ones are made out of plastic, so those you don't need to remove. But if they are like this, they are leather, you need to remove them before cleaning, because otherwise they are ruined. So yeah, once the clock's released, like, ta-da! So now I have about 20 minutes left, so I'm going to explain now how a bit of a simpler clock works. I'm going to take one of the hands. Because this clock is just it strikes the hours, but it strikes once on the half hour. So I'm going to explain a bit how that works. So basically, let's see, what is it going to do now? It's just going to do half hour. It's going to do isn't striking properly. It's a bit stuck. So what basically happens is that if the clock, so there are also two pins on the extension of the minute hand, and basically what happens is, if it's the half hour, it will only lift it out so far that this cam can't fall. So now it's doing the hour, and it's going to count again like I explained earlier. But if it's the half hour, yeah, it's the same. But if it's only the half hour, it isn't going to. It isn't lifting this high enough that the clam can fall. And as a result of that, it can only hit once, and it stops. That's the way because on half an hour it only strikes once, so that's how it's doing it, by just differentiating the height here. So you can see on the hour, it's going to lift it high enough that the cam can fall and strike the hours. now. Once this can fall, it's going to block a pin here. But if it's just half an hour, it's only going to lift it high enough that you could see the pre-strike here. So the pre-strike has gone now, and then it's just going to count once, and then it falls back in here, and it blocks the movement again. So next week I will try to have a clock with another counting mechanism, a very old counting mechanism with a lot of flaws into it, but it's going to be interesting. And after that I'm going to play some Astroneer on stream. I haven't played Astroneer in a long time, and I have never finished the game, so that's probably the first game I'm going to stream. In between, like, things going like on like Lego or showing something clocks. And in the future I hope to get a microscope hooked up with a camera so that I can show smaller things like mechanical watches and chronographs and things like that. But that's for the future. So, are there any questions about this clock or watches in general? Something you want to see in the future that's clock related? Like, I might show some electromechanical clocks in the future too, but I'm not sure. I need to probably demount them a bit before stream to get to the interesting bits pretty quickly, because thanks. I'm glad you'll find it interesting. Yeah, like I have like a few minutes left, like 10 minutes more, like actually 13 minutes left this stream, so if you have any questions, now it's time. Otherwise, I'm going to wrap up the stream. Okay, so a bit about like when I will be streaming. I'll probably be streaming every Tuesday and Thursday. For now, that works for me. It might change in the future, but just so you know, it's a bit of a nice break of the week. Well, I don't know. I never really had online. Well, yeah, I did have some online classes, but not really where you could ask questions that easily. But yeah, I think you speak from experience. Okay. Well, I've given online classes before, and there were always questions, but that was for more of an adult experienced public, so I think that counts a bit more in that direction. Like, but yeah, I guess this is the stream then. Bye bye everyone. Thanks for hanging out in chat. Thanks for watching. And if you're watching the replay, I will try to put some of the links we discussed it in chat in the description of the video, so you can check that out as well. Yeah,